Hello and welcome back to the show. We are kicking off episode 1 of 2026. It has been a while since I have recorded a show for the podcast, and you probably have noticed, I know a couple of you have actually inboxed me on Instagram asking about it, and I had a little break over the Christmas New Year period. I think it was probably like the whole of, actually, to be honest, I think the last episode I might have put up was before Ways, which is November. So it's been a while, but I was a little bit burnt out of content creation at the end of last year, need a little bit of a break, and then getting back into the swing of things for January. If you've been following along with a bit of my journey on Instagram, probably you would have seen this. There's a couple of things that are changing in the back end for me with business. So I've had to organize all of that. Stay tuned for more if you have no idea what I'm talking about, because I usually share that all over on social media. But we'll be dropping a couple of things along the way as the year progresses. But anyway, kicking off 2026, Happy New Year. Hope you had a lovely break. I hope you're feeling really refreshed and motivated for the year. I know this is where a lot of people set goals and think about what's happening for the year and their career direction. So I hope you're feeling excited. I know I am, and I hope that you are too. Now, before we get stuck into the actual content of the day, just a friendly reminder, if you love the show and you haven't already, please subscribe to it. Please share it among your colleagues if you think that it is useful and you find this helpful in career progression, but also in terms of women's health stuff. I really have a goal of reaching more clinicians and providing lots of stuff that's free to access for them. So I'd really appreciate you supporting that and helping me out in that area. So don't forget to share, make sure you're subscribed, do all the things. So a little recap, what has been happening? Great question, because it's been a while since I've actually shared that with you. Like I said, last time I recorded an episode, it was for Ways, the Women's Health and Exercise Summit, a virtual summit for clinicians wanting to learn everything about women's health and exercise, and it went off. Tanisha and I could not have been more stoked with how the event went. The feedback that we had was incredible and really exceeded our expectations. We are very, very grateful for everybody who jumped on board for this one, not having a clue what it was even going to be about and whether it was even going to be fun. But we were so we really wanted to provide an experience that was really fun, really fresh, had new content and topic ideas and perspectives that might be a little bit different, and really sort of provide you with something that was, different than your traditional PD or topics that you've learned about. So for those who attended, I hope you really enjoyed them. It sounds like you did from all the feedback that we got, but we were so stoked. We had 77 people jump into the summit, which is actually blows my mind for the first one, because you never really know how it's going to go when you're kind of like launching a new thing. I guess it's like the same for you if you've got a new service and you're like, hope people actually want this. So we were a little bit nervous, but we were so stoked. We had clinicians from every single state across Australia. So covered the whole country with one event, which is so cool. Like, it just blows my mind. I feel like this is awesome. Anyway, we had a blast. I had a really fun day. We got to meet so many of you, actually, well, not really in person, but online, and say hello and talk instead of being in the DMs on Instagram or just randomly seeing those people that you just know are following you, but you've never really actually spoken to them. So it was really cool. I was so excited to actually put faces to names and voices to faces and really get to know quite a few of you. The next will be 2027. It's going to be every 2 years, because we put so much effort into this and we want it to be really good. We've got really good ideas and probably a little bit of a big idea for the next one. So stay tuned. We're going to do it 2027. We're not really 100% sure on the dates yet, but we will slowly, obviously, share more information with that as it gets closer. It's only the beginning of 2026, but believe it or not, you actually have to start planning these things a lot earlier than what you think. So we're excited for that one, but take the year to relax on the virtual summits and get ready for 2027, because it'll be bigger and better and more exciting. The mentorship has officially kicked off for the intake applications for 2026. A little bit of a quick overview if you don't know what that is. It's a 6-month intensive program on pelvic health across the female life cycle. We have 6 learning modules that are quite intensive in the first 6 months. We have 2 group calls every month that go through workshopping exercises, case studies, discussions. And because they're quite flexible in the sense of the content, we end up covering women's health topics in general, and we go through stuff that's not really in the learning material within the mentorship. So we get quite a good exposure to a lot of in-depth women's health content and education. There are 6 one-on-one calls within this intake, and they are going to be used throughout 2026. So normally they're in like the 6-month intensive block, but I find sometimes that's like a little bit too much, like one-on-one support too soon. So we've spaced them out. You can just use them across 2026 if you jump in, and that way we can support you with service development or business stuff if you're into business and you're wanting to work on your own, or you run your own business already. So it really depends on how you want to use those one-on-one sessions. They're available for just one-on-one support to really apply everything to your own workplace. I feel like that's something that's really unique about this mentorship, is it's very individualized to the person joining in a sense of how you apply the content. There are also a ton of templates. We've got case studies, screening templates. There are example programs all the way from the beginning of someone's initial consult to the end of their treatment. There are instructional exercise videos that you can basically use for your client programs, where you just link them videos if you need them to know a certain one. So yeah, there's a ton that you can just plug and play straight into your workplace. There are limited spots in the program. It is a highly supportive program. So for that reason, I make it application only. Make sure you're a really good fit for the program. It also protects the community side of the program. It's really important to me that you have an active learning approach where everybody feels safe to communicate, talk, suggest, ask questions, and you get to know people in the mentorship. There is nothing worse than jumping in calls where you just feel like a random person on the screen with a million other people, or you just don't really have that connection, especially when you're doing something ongoing. So that is why it's by application only. If you want to learn more about the program and you want to apply, you can head to the website. It's www.hereducation.com.au/mentorship. Applications are open until the end of February, and they do close off if the spots are filled before then. The mentorship kicks off this year in March for the 6 intensive months. So get excited, because it'll be a great one. It always is a great one. Everyone in this program is so motivated and excited to be inside. So it's a really nice community to be part of. Now, if you are looking for other PD, maybe other women's health topics, we've got 2 different types on the website as well. So we've got our Spark sessions, which are specialist practical application of research and knowledge. That's what Spark actually stands for, if you didn't already know. And they are like clinical discussions with people who are specialists in their field, and they talk about those particular topics. So we've got a PCOS one, we've got an oncology one, there is trauma, there is nutrition for women's health as well. So there's plenty of things that you can go look at if you want to have like a bit more short learning experiences. If you want something a little bit more in depth, we've got the collaboration programs where I've brought in other clinicians in their field to teach on that particular topic. And these are more deeper dives. So they're 4-part series where it adds up to about 8 learning hours, maybe 9 in some cases. And it's a really good mix of the theory and the in-depth stuff, but also the practical application. That is one of the requirements for these programs, is a lot of practical application. So programming, what you did, modifications, how to actually use the content in your learning, in your work environment. So if you want to check those out, I would highly recommend that. The collaboration programs we have at the moment are the Breast Cancer Mastery program with Nicola Begley and the Working with Trauma and Women's Health with Stuart McDonald. So both really great programs. They're excellent, really deep. I loved both of them, and I'm sure you will too. So you can check them out on the website as well. And they're in a self-paced format at the moment. So you can just log in, learn at your own pace, and I think there's about 6 months access to the learning content so that you actually finish the content and you don't just leave it sitting there like I'll finish that later. So you can check them out also on the website. All right, let's get stuck into the topic of the day, which is what actually helps you become specialized in women's health. And I wanted to kick off the year with this topic because everybody is thinking about their yearly goals, their career direction. Are they actually happy? I feel like most people end up changing jobs at this time of the year where they're like, I'm done with that. I really want to do this. So that's why I'm kicking this off, because I know a lot of you here that are listening are really into women's health, and you're either wanting to work into women's health, maybe you are thinking a little bit more about stepping up those skills, or you wanting to feel a bit more confident in your workplace and be a little bit more specialized rather than just being a generalist clinician that sees the women's health clients. But generally, I wanted to talk about this because it's not just about choosing your CPD and doing all the CPD in women's health. That is not what actually makes you confident in this area. So we're going to dive into that. Now, I want to preface that this episode is not really about bashing other CPD. It's about bridging the gap between the CPD that you do and actually feeling confident in being a specialist clinician. And sometimes it's not even about whether you are a specialist, it's about feeling confident enough to call yourself a specialist, because I know there's a lot of you out there who are too afraid to even say that that's what you do, even though you're probably actually quite good at it. I actually hear this in the stage 2 application calls for the mentorship program all the time. It's usually like, I've done women's health CPD, I feel like I've done all the research or done all the learning, and I just still don't really feel confident in my skills, and I feel like a bit of an imposter, or I feel like a fraud actually calling myself a women's health exercise physiologist. And this is something that I personally can relate to just from my own experience developing the skills as a women's health EP, and I really want to help you not feel like that, because it's not a very nice feeling. The first thing I want to tell you about this is that confidence is not coming from getting more information. This is a story that I hear all the time. Clinicians just doing more courses and doing more research and collecting all of this information rather than actually implementing it. They are hoping that by doing more and getting more information that they're going to feel confident in their skills. And in reality, this is not how it works. It actually comes from applying the skills and actually doing the work, reflecting on whether it's going well, where you could improve, maybe getting some feedback, and slowly building your confidence over time, where you see the work that you apply result in positive outcomes, and then trust that you have those skills. One of the most challenging situations for a lot of people in this industry is that they don't actually have women's health clients and they can't refine their skills, and they're wondering, like, how do I actually do this? How do I learn and then apply when I don't have the clients coming in? Or if you do have them, they're coming in every so often and so sporadically that you almost feel like you're relearning every time you apply these skills, and you're not really sure if that's what you should be doing, because you're not getting that repetitiveness that's needed to really refine the skills that you've already kind of learnt or apply or see the positive outcomes for it. Or in that case too, it could be that those clients don't follow through with their treatment. And so you've given them, maybe you've seen them for 2 or 3 sessions, and then they're just not coming back, booking back in to see you. So you're not really getting to the end of their treatment and saying like, oh, that actually worked. Which ultimately means that someone then comes into the clinic, a women's health client, and maybe they're a little bit more complex. They've got a little bit more layering across their health conditions, and you are more unsure of what to do because you haven't really mastered like the basics for the most ideal client. So then your confidence drops even more. And then you think like, I'm not really a women's health specialist, or at least I don't feel like I am. I've done all this learning, but I still don't feel confident enough to say like, I am the women's health guru here. You should come and see me. This is such a common story where so many clinicians, they really want to see women's health clients, but they don't feel like they can advertise that they can help them. So they don't advertise they can help them. So then clients aren't coming in to see them, so they can't practically apply their skills and keep getting better to actually call themselves the specialist. And this is like this continuous cycle that they just can't get out of because they're not really refining and learning and feeling confident. So how do you actually do this? How do you bridge the gap if you don't see these clients? You have to get exposure through someone else Or if you're ballsy enough, you actually start applying the knowledge that you've already learnt and you start reflecting and you start refining your skills. But that obviously takes a little bit of guts, and so many people don't actually have that. So ideally, you need to get exposure to other people's clients. So indirect exposure. You need this for repetition, you need it for pattern recognition, you need to be able to reflect on whether that's actually something that worked for the person or not. And you need to be able to see similar presentations again and again and again. And I guess that feeds into all the other things that we've spoken about, because the more you see the similar people or the same and different things, you say, oh, that worked for that person, it probably worked for this person. And you have this exposure to all the types of situations where you could apply this stuff where it worked. So now you feel confident to try it with someone else who might be a little bit more complex. This indirect exposure to people who have the thing that you want to see, or women's health clients in this case, is what is missing from all the other PD that I've seen within our industry. They teach you the theory, there might be 1 or 2 case studies of the most ideal clients, and they suggest, oh, we gave them 4 weeks of strength programming, or we did some glute strengthening and we gave them this many minutes of aerobic exercise, and all was fine and dandy, which is not actually helpful when you leave and you're trying to apply it in the real world. There are no challenging clients within these sort of learning environments. They're all, like, sometimes I even wonder whether they're even real clients or whether they've just made up a particular case study for that particular PD, but there's no chance to ask questions after, there's no repetition of similar clients, and it's just not actually helpful in real clinical application where there's all these other things that it's like research. It's like, oh, this is the most ideal program for this particular client, except they don't take into consideration all the other things that feed into someone actually coming into clinic, getting results, being consistent. Like, I feel like it's just this missing piece to our CPD that I think is where the true transformation in skills comes from. Now, where do you get this indirect exposure? The first one is through mentorships, where there's case studies presented, and there should be multiple case studies where you can discuss, and they're clients that the person who is teaching you actually sees. The second one is through community groups. It might be Facebook groups, it might be other, I don't really know where else you get community groups, but community groups where people can post about, hey, I'm having troubles with this client. Does anyone have any recommendations on what I can do? That's another great way. You can read other people's case studies. You can see what people answer. You can see what other people have suggested, and then kind of like maybe apply it in your own learning if you have a similar client to that, or you can sort of get this exposure to like what other people would do. And the third one is shadowing someone else and just being in the sessions and watching them. And I guess this is a little bit like, what's that thing you do at uni where you go placement? For a second, I forgot what that was. It's like placement, where you go and you watch and you learn and you see what's happening in the real world. Seeing how someone else programs, what they, how they progress, and their clinical reasoning behind things is so key for true learning when you're trying to be better at something and apply something and be confident in something. This is what helps build confidence so much faster than just learning all the theory and collecting more information. When we think about pelvic health, this can be so layered and so complex. Pain plays a role. Mental health plays a role, trauma history plays a role, hormonal status plays a role, birth history plays a role. There is so many things that feed into it that all the modules and the theory lessons are so great for building foundational knowledge in these particular areas, but understanding how they all play into it together in complex layers and different combinations is where we really need real world case studies and discussions and application of all of this to see what happens for the individual in front of you. What I see in the clinicians that I support through the mentorship is the biggest transformations come from the discussions that we have in the group calls and in the one-on-one calls, where it is in-depth back and forth conversation about certain topics or certain clients, and it isn't just a Q&A session at the end of a webinar where one person asks the question, the teacher answers, and no one really else engages. We need lengthy discussions, we need other people sharing their opinions, their advice, or what they would actually do. And this comes from a safe space where the clinicians feel like they can actually contribute. That is something that is so obvious when it comes to the group calls inside the mentorship. It's this discussion. It's like clinical conversations rather than just like, here's the answer, see you, bye. When clinicians actually take up mentorship and they have these in-depth conversations, there's this tailorability to the information that they're learning to their workplace, because something I've seen is that everybody applies the same learning in such a different way that I only really see because we get to discuss and we get to see each other one-on-one and really think about like, oh, this doesn't really apply the same in your workplace as the other person, because their roles are so different, their workplaces are so different, what their goals as a clinician are so different. So the one-on-one or the mentoring side of the learning is where we can really piece together like, how is this actually relevant to you? Because some of it actually isn't, and other parts are so much more relevant than you think they are, and we can really hone in on this and refine it and apply it to your workplace so that you actually feel satisfied in your work, but also so confident. An example of this would be clinicians that have brought in a particular type of service model because they want to work in a more one-to-one intimate capacity with their clients that are specifically tailored for maybe a certain population that they see. Then we've seen group programs be introduced because maybe that one-on-one supportive nature isn't something that they have capacity to do in their workplace. Or maybe they don't even want to do that. Maybe they want to build more like community-based group programs. So they've been able to take away the theory and then actually apply it and bring it in as a service within their business, and then continue to grow that, see more of those same clients, and then actually walk away feeling more confident because they've seen outcomes change from what they're actually doing. It's about learning the theory, learning the application, actually applying it, and then slowly transitioning into this clinician or specialist role that they actually want to be in. When I reflect back on what it is that actually helps clinicians feel confident, I think it boils down to 3 different parts or components, or 3 key things. The first one is a safe and non-judgmental environment. We all know what it feels like to sit inside a group call or a community group and feel too nervous or scared to ask the question that is probably actually the most helpful for our career progression, because we're really worried about what other people are going to think and the judgments that we're going to get from them. The second thing is real clinical resources that actually help you, that aren't just random guidelines. This means actual exercises, sets and reps, progressions, what happens when you need to modify them, what happens when someone returns back from their consults 2 weeks later doing their home exercises and it's not working. What do we actually do? Resources like screening templates or example programs, or how to structure your programming well, like a programming template. Resources that clinicians can actually use in their clinic and then see how it works for them, tweak it as they go, and turn it into something that is more specific for them, that's useful for their own practice. I feel like clinical resources are so important when it comes to progression within confidence, because it removes a lot of the barriers that actually help and support you becoming that clinician. For example, the amount of people I've seen who I said, you need to bring in like a women's health screening form, and then they haven't actually done it because they don't know how to put it together. They don't really know what questions to ask. Whereas now I've just given one to people, they can just plug it straight into their own workplace, see what works, and then refine it as they need. It's like the confidence to do it themselves isn't even there yet. So let's provide resources where people actually can use these and then go away and refine it later. The third thing, ongoing feedback and guidance. I've had plenty of situations in the mentorship where someone's jumped into either the group calls or their one-on-one calls and they've said, hey, like, this is the plan that I have in terms of progression for this particular client. Is like, what are your thoughts on this? And as soon as I say, oh yeah, that's great, that's exactly what you should be doing, or I would just tweak that little section here, has given them the space to go, oh, great, I just wanted to check that I was on the right track before I actually did this. And that feeling of not being on the right track is what stops clinicians from actually progressing programs for people in the right way, or having the confidence to say, no, we're going to be doing this instead, and stops them from actually being able to book the person back in confidently, being able to get the result for the person, and then is this barrier for confidence progression. When I really think about what confidence means for a clinician in their practice, it really means career satisfaction. We go to uni, we spend all this money on getting the education, and we think it's going to be really awesome. And then in a couple of years' time, you often start to feel a little bit lost. Is this the right pathway? I don't really feel confident at what I'm doing. I don't really feel like I'm that good at something. I am not really seeing the clients that I really want to see. I'm doing this workers' comp role and I want to be in women's health. And in reality, this is the part in time where a lot of people start to think about pivoting in their career. And it's usually toward physio. And this is sad because in reality, we all know that for long-term results, people need to be doing strength and conditioning, which is what you are technically qualified to actually do, and you just don't really feel confident doing that yet in the particular area that you want to work in. But when you find the right education alongside support from mentorship, you build confidence and your work starts feeling more satisfying and you are on the right path. Maybe it even feels a little bit more meaningful, like you're actually changing the lives of the people that you care about the most. And it starts feeling like you're a healthcare provider and you're not just a trainer or someone who gives random exercises out, which I battled with that feeling for so long. And I know that it resonates with so many of you. I personally believe that if you find a mentor who is invested in you just as much as you are invested in them, they really truly provide support and they care about your career, they're in the trenches with you, teaching you how to refine your skills, giving you their tools, not holding anything back from you, this is what truly changes how you feel about being on the right direction with your career. When we think about it, in reality, you do this with your clients. You don't just give them the theory about exercise, you show them what to do. You give them feedback, you tweak their technique, you provide support for them when they feel like it's not actually working or maybe when they're really struggling with it. You are your client's mentor in their health. So you need someone to do that for you with the career direction that you are wanting to go in. If any of this resonates with you, I want you to know that the mentorship is open for application, and I really think it'll be the best step forward for you in terms of progressing your career in women's health. It is not just a course, it is definitely not for everyone, but it is everything that I have discussed today. It is in depth, it is for clinicians who want to feel super confident in women's health, they want to be more of a specialized practitioner and not just someone who sees women's health at their place of work when they're not women's health clients. And we build real depth in women's health and pelvic health in such a compressed time frame rather than years and years and years of trying to do it alone, which is basically what I did. It is once a year intake and it is very limited spots because it is such a supportive program that I like to protect the nature of that and make sure everybody gets the support that they need and that everyone in the community can feel connected to each other. I've shared the link to the website where you can read more information about this and also apply in the show notes if you are interested in reading more. If you've been feeling like you are capable of more within your career, this is not just a random feeling or thought. It is a sign that you are ready for more depth, less random information, more practical application where you can build confidence and skills that are actually relevant to you and your career progression. I hope to see your application comes through. Everybody that comes through the program absolutely loves it. I've shared their insights into the program on the website so that you can figure out whether it's the right fit for you. But I really encourage you to apply because I don't want you to be sitting in the same position next year saying to yourself, I still really don't feel that confident in my skills or like I'm actually doing anything meaningful with my career. That's a wrap on today's episode. I hope you start taking action towards feeling a little bit more confident. Thank you again for being here. It means the world that you spend this time listening to my voice. I will see you in the next one. Bye.